Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Bankert.
Tyson, way back in episode
hmm
15, we talked about tightly coupled relationships. And when people are done listening to this one, they can go and li-
Listen to it.
or whatever. Okay. Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Bankert.
Tyson, way back, we did episode 15 about tightly coupled
hmm
relationships, where you think a relationship has ended, but because it ended badly, it's still in your mind.
Yeah.
It's keeping you awake nights. You're still having the argument, but you're playing all the parts in your head.
hmm
Let's talk a little bit more about what makes that a tightly coupled relationship when it ends badly.
So like after a bad breakup, I'm thinking it's bad. It's just that relationship was garbage, not good at all. And that's what I'm leaving with when it ends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally toxic. How did you ever wind up with that person or that job or
Totally. In that circumstance, yeah, everything. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship was bad all along. It's your memory of it.
Mm.
So I'm very taken with the work of Danielle Kahneman, who was the psychologist who talked about the peak end rule.
Peak and rule. Okay.
Peak end. So relationships are a time series.
hmm
They have a beginning and sometimes they have an
hmm
end. But in between, there are peaks and valleys.
hmm
And when it's high emotion at the peak
hmm
and how it ends tend to be more emotional. Those are the ones you remember. And that's what can keep you in a tightly coupled relationship where you're stuck reliving, why did I make those decisions? This is ruining my life.
So, Deborah, when it ends, are you saying that we only look at the peaks of the good times, or are the peaks also bad?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
because everybody is different.
Yeah, okay.
Some people will think about it in its totality and say, well, there were good times,
hmm
but it needed to end. It ran its
hmm
course, and I don't consider it a failure.
Mm.
It just wasn't meeting our
Right,
needs
right.
anymore. And, shake hands and
hmm
thanks for the good time.
hmm hmm
Other people are embittered, they're
Mm.
stuck,
Mm.
and the conflict keeps going in a tightly coupled relationship.
Right.
What do you do about
hmm
that?
So so peak end rule really is this idea or this rule that you are holding on to, that you're still thinking about that relationship in context of the conflict, in context of the peaks. And what we're trying to say is like that dynamic that you're finding yourself in, the relationship has ended, but you haven't actually left that relationship in terms of thinking about it as the peaks, essentially.
Yes. And you don't know if the other person is thinking about it at all. They might be saying, yeah, well, whatever,
On
whereas
sticks.
you're
Yeah.
saying that was totally toxic.
Interesting. So what's helpful for someone is to kind of start to consider what that might mean for them if they're holding on to this, and the peak end rule might be the reason.
And it isn't a rule, it's a
Yeah.
context
Yes.
for some people, perhaps based on their particular personality or past experiences. They might also be saying, why have I done this again and
Mm,
again? When am I going to learn this lesson
mm-hmm.
that these are bad relationships for me?
And you said something earlier, which I thought was really important, is like the word bias. So like bias being really the issue is like it's everyone actually falls into these traps essentially, right? Or this rule of thinking about it, and it's really about their maybe inability to be able to kind of have that distance that's required. And they have a bias about that relationship because sometimes some relationships are really quite healthy. It's only how we look at them,
And
especially when they end.
yes, and even a healthy relationship can end in an unhealthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, So the conflict competency is just to be aware that this exists.
Mm-hmm.
When you're tightly coupled with a bad feeling about a relationship you just can't let go of in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
is to say, this is me looking at the peaks and the endings. This may not be everything.
Hmm.
And if it is, it's a bias I have to focus, to hone
Mm,
in on that. And now that I'm aware of it, I can work on that as
hmm,
the conflict
hmm.
competency. And it's breaking an unhealthy pattern.
Great. Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing, and hopefully folks can come back next week. And like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll be here next time.
Thank you so much for listening.